Hello and welcome to Following On County Cricketer. I'm Jon Norman from talkSPORT alongside Steve Harmison, two-time county championship winner, as well as Nick Friend and George Dobell from thecricketer.com. We're going to be running our eye over all of the action from week 2 of the county championship, Division 1 and Division 2. Thanks for joining us here on Following On County Cricketer. Okay, plenty to talk about this week, as ever. Full round of fixtures in both Division 1 and Division 2. It's difficult to know where to start, really. But I'm going to plump for Warwickshire because that was we saw 2 extraordinary run chases. One completed in quick time by Kent. Middlesex would probably be ruining that drop of Zach Crawley when he'd yet to get off the mark. But Warwickshire yesterday, wow. Durham bottom of Division 1, 2 defeats out of 2. I think this really shows how competitive the league is going to be this season. Warwickshire tipped to struggle. They should really have lost the game, I imagine. George, let's start with you. I mean, that was a phenomenal result, wasn't it? And has really set the season up beautifully.
Yeah, it has. I mean, you'd have got really great odds on Warwickshire being top of the table after the 2 rounds of games. There was a lot there. I mean, Ed Barnard might be the most underrated cricketer in the county game, in that he's got fantastic batting technique, and he probably started his career as a bowler. So I wonder whether people maybe don't appreciate him. But a couple of other things that stood out there. Durham's declaration was probably a bit generous, but it set up the most fantastic last day. Whereas I was at Trent Bridge, no declaration, horrendous. Last couple of hours were, really, really bad. But maybe that was right. Maybe it was right not to declare. I mean, I'd be interested to ask Harmy what he thinks. Did Durham get that wrong? Because I think they're bottom. They've got very, very close. It was brave, but with 8 points for a draw, should they have been a bit more logical? And second for the draw.
I get you what you're saying. With Ryan Campbell, I mean, we spoke to him on Following On, me and Manners, before the season started, and he talked about the positivity of cricket he wants to play. Durham have always been a club, even when I was playing Dale Benkenstein, when we were successful, he was always, I'm prepared to risk losing a game to try and win it. And that's been Durham's mentality for quite a while now. So I don't mind these, I think you can go back to last week as well. I mean, Durham batted and went at nearly 5.5 and over to try and set up a game against Notts, and they come on the wrong side of that one, where Ackerman getting 100 in each inning. So I think Durham were trying to win the game 350 or 340. They'd fancy their chances with the bowling lineup that Durham have got, especially against a team that probably wasn't fancied. I watched the stream. I mean, Durham had the game won 90 for 5. It was game over. Then all of a sudden, and I mean, first ball after tea, Ed Barnard hit a 4, and it was a beautiful shot for 4. And I was like, they're going to win here. Until that moment, right, watching the stream, I did not believe Warwickshire would win. But when Ed Barnard hit the first or second ball after tea for 4, I was like, yeah, Warwickshire might win this, and they've got a great chance of winning this. It was a wonderful innings. It really was a great innings. And then Doggett got 2 and 2 balls. And then you were hanging on for about 4 overs for the second new ball. I thought Durham got that wrong, though. I was watching. I thought Durham got it wrong. Potts and Rain took the new ball. Rain had 4 wickets, I know, but Doggett had just got 2 and 2. He's your overseas player. I thought Doggett probably should have took the new ball with Potts. And it might have all ifs and buts, but fair play. I mean, Ethan Bamber coming in at number 10 and getting 30 not out. Fernando hitting that one through mid-wicket for 4. And it was just, the game was on a knife edge with I think it finished 45 balls left. So brilliant win for Warwickshire. Excellent mentality for Durham. And the one thing I will say about my team, and it is my team, that yes, they're bottom of the table, 2 from 2, but if they keep this mentality of trying to win matches, by the end of the season, they'll win more than they'll lose.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, and it was a brilliant advert for the game, and that should matter for something. But you know what I mean? Maybe we were talking about this online over the weekend. Maybe there are too many points for a draw. I don't know. I actually haven't got a conclusion, really. It does encourage quite safety first cricket when there are 8 points for a draw. But equally, we wanted, a few years ago, we wanted sides to battle more, and we wanted to make sure that pitches weren't produced to just create results in maybe 2.5 days or whatever. And I can see why they've ended up with 8. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it was probably right. But it does create some pretty grim cricket. Hey, just one other thing that stuck out, I thought. Imagine you're a Worcestershire supporter yesterday, and you're watching these hundreds from Ed Barnard and Jack Haynes.
Yeah.
It would sting a little as you're licking your wounds from the biggest runs defeat in history. It would hurt.
I'll say about the Durham game, just to finish off on the Durham game. I watched McKinney's innings at the start, and that was very good. I mean, yeah, he's still got a long way to go, and I think there's an element of naivety and youth there. But I tell you what, this boy's a talented player, and when he gets past 30-40, there's a lot of Trescothic in him in a way which, and I've put pressure on him saying that, he scores quickly, he scores in good areas, and I think he scores in good areas Test cricket, which is down the ground through sort of extra cover region, where a lot of good international bowlers try and sort of catch you out. So I was very, very impressed with young McKinney off the back of the winter, and then coming in, he didn't get as many in the first round of games, but it was a big 150 was a good score.
Can we talk about Sussex, because they doled out a whooping. I wondered how Somerset were going to go after having to bowl for 200 overs, and also the mental baggage from not bowling Worcestershire out in that first match. Craig Overton wasn't selected for this game. I'm not sure, George, if that was because he'd had to bowl a lot in that match, but that was a big toss to lose. Having to bowl again, I thought they battled their way back into it quite nicely, but in the end, that's another big defeat, isn't it? Nick, I don't know where you were.
Sorry.
But no, I'll bring in Nick as well. Nick, I'm not sure where you were for the last 4 days, but again, Sussex promoted. Paul Farbrace saying they're there to compete at the top of the table, not just avoid relegation. It's not just about that. And well, there they are. They're third in the table with a win and a draw from the first 2 games.
Yeah, they're good. I was at Bristol for Gloucester v Glamorgan on Friday, and then I was at the Oval yesterday for the conclusion. Never quite a run chase, was it, between Surrey and Hampshire? Hampshire, I thought, were really good, actually. Played about as well as they possibly could do yesterday, I reckon. I mean, if you're talking about Durham, I mean, Somerset are in a very similar boat in that they should have, they thought they were going to walk their first game in 2.5 days when they bowled Worcestershire out for 150, and then, Tom Banton got his 370, they were 700 odd, and gave themselves 200 overs to take 10 wickets, and fell one short, and suddenly, from being, a win up on Surrey and Essex, for example, that they feel like they've missed a chance, and they've gone to Sussex, and as you said, been absolutely battered, and but they're being Sussex. I don't know how much that's sort of like riding the wave of last year, or but also just being a very well defined team. They know they know how they play. They pick a specialist spinner in Jack Carson, a spin bowling around in James Coles. They've got their overseas quick in Jaden Seals, and they know he's going to be replaced by Sandhu at some point in the season, and Nathan McAndrew at some point in the season, and they've got Daniel Hughes as their overseas batter all year. They just know where they stand. They've got John Simpson's averaging, I think, 9 on 80 since he joined Sussex, and guys in Tom Haynes who sort of kind of just done this for the. I mean, Tom Haynes is interesting, isn't he? He's got a lot of runs in Div 2 when he first came through as like the adult child in that team of kids, and he had a couple of goes with the Lions, but this is obviously his first go in Div 1. This is the first year in Div 1 since 2015, and this was without Ollie Robinson. Actually, I thought it showed that showed what a strange game cricket is, and that Banton goes 370 one week, hardly running the match the next week, and Sean Hunt, who couldn't get a game last week, rocks up, takes 9 for. So they're really good, and the biggest issue I thought they'd have would be winning at home, where it can be flat, but to do that to Somerset in their first game, that is a big old boost for them, but a massive blow for Somerset, because so they've gone from a position where they probably looked at it and gone, Worcester at home, win that, promote a team away, win that, 2 from 2, but they're basically the opposite, aren't they? So, but yeah, Sussex are, as you said right at the start, I think really competitive division this year, maybe more so than last year, where there were a couple who got sort of cut adrift quite early on.
Sean Humboldt. Well, watched some of his dismissals. I seen him a year or two ago and thought, I'm not sure. I didn't think he brought that one back enough to sort of compete on flat pitches. You know what the way the sort of left arms looked at, but he bowled nicely. Nine for in the match.
Farby said yesterday. Farby said yesterday. I think Farby called it international quality.
I liked it. I mean, the dismissals he got were of bringing the ball back into play against good players on flat pitches. And he got a few LBWs. He got a lot of caught behinds. Cleaned the tail up in the first innings, I think it was, with a lot of caught behinds, little thin edges to Simpson. But yeah, they're excellent side. The one thing I will say about, I want to touch on with Somerset, and maybe George, might have an opinion on this. This is 115 overs and 85 overs of spin in the first 2 rounds of games. And England's number 1 spinner, in England's eyes, is not there. Now, Somerset's either getting it horribly wrong, or England are. Now, time will tell on the England one, and I think it could be a possibility of a bit of both. But I mean, if you're bowling nearly 200 overs in the first 2 weeks of the county championship, even if you don't rate Sean Bashir, you'd think there's a chance that he would get you to victory, because you've lost games which you possibly should have won.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week, didn't we? And I think that it's a really, really good point. I mean, I think it's great that he's playing. I'm glad that the loan system's been used so that he and John Turner and people are getting some cricket. But it does suggest that it feels like a fudge, doesn't it? If they're not going to play Shoaib and Leach in the same side, and you can see why it's difficult, because neither of them are going to bat in the top 9, then probably you need to let him go.
110 overs Jack Leach has bowled in second innings over the course of the last 2 games. That's a lot of overs, right?
I watched Bashir bowl at Bristol on Friday for Glamorgan, and there wasn't a great deal in it, and it's almost hard to judge how a spinner goes in, when the opposition had putting together a record 3rd wicket stand, and then there's very little in it, and particularly as an off-spinner bowling to 2 right-handers. But he went at 4.5s in Gloucester's early innings, and I suppose you'd say that would be good for him, because he was bowling overs that. But as you say, like, I don't know, this loan wasn't put together when everyone knew it was going to be 25 degrees for the first 2 weeks of the season. You wonder if it might have been different had they known, but you probably wouldn't have expected to get the overs out of Leach, certainly, that they've had to in the last 2 weeks. But it's hard to disagree. I mean, and also bear in mind, Bashir's only at Glamorgan because Mason Crane's injured. That's not a loan that's been, Glamorgan weren't desperate for an off spinner, that they just needed a reinforcement for 3 rounds. So
you're also killing Archie Vaughan. I mean, I know I'm biased because obviously the relationship I've had with his father, and seeing Archie sort of his career develop, but you're asking an opening batter, 19-year-old, about 50 overs a week. I mean, come on. I mean,
he'd love that, wouldn't he, Harmy?
Yeah, he'd love it, but he's in the team as a batter who can bowl rather than
he's an opener
bowler. If you're going to bowl 40 overs, and then you're going to strap him on to go straight into the field, into open a bat in first division cricket as a 19-year-old, that's an ask for anybody. Overseas players, that's an ask. So
not to compare them as bowlers, but it does feel like there's a parallel here between Archie Vaughan and Josh De Caires this time last year, where you bring in a batter who bowls some off spin, who bowls really well when it's turning into sort of middle to back end of the previous year. It goes away. Josh went away with the Lions, Archie Vaughan went away with England 19s, and you come back, and as you say, it can be quite easy to forget that these guys are predominantly batters who bowl some off spin, and actually it's very different to someone cleaning up in June, July, August, September to what it is in early April, when the spin is slow, if they're at all, and I suppose you're a bit more of a known quantity than you were 7, 8 months ago. So not to compare them as bowlers, but certainly the situation feels similar.
Let's carry this conversation over to the next section of the show. You're listening to County Cricketer, following on County Cricketer. You're listening to Following On County Cricketer. We're just talking about Somerset spinning woes. Is that the end of the title dreams again for another season, George?
No. It's very, very close in there, isn't it? I mean, we're not saying it's over for Durham, are we?
No.
I don't think I ever said it started.
The 12 points, Durham are 12 points behind Surrey, and Somerset are 4 points behind Surrey. It's not over because they're going to win it.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's not over either. And actually, Surrey's lack of spinner has been an issue. But, you know, it is quite tough to bowl spin in England, and it's particularly tough to bowl it in April. I mean, it's not just the pitches. The pitches that I've seen have been fine. I mean, there's no criticism of them. But you wouldn't really expect them to be providing a lot of help. It's not like there's even been any moisture to get any grip. It's been hard. But it has been a factor in Surrey's struggles as well. Maybe they should have been looking to show him. I mean, he did start life there in a way, didn't he? And also just on that, you know, maybe it's not that wise to be picking people to play for England from clips on social media. I mean, maybe you do have to look at them for a bit longer. What did they used to say? Multiple eyes, multiple times. And now it's a clip on social media.
What I would say more broadly for the actual, you know, league table, there have literally been 5 wins, I think it is, in 2 rounds. I wouldn't be right anyone. I think Durham are 1 win off the top. You know, I think it's interesting that we don't have, you know, it's interesting that, I suppose it's always interesting when Surrey don't, you know, start as like a house on fire and they're 2 draws from 2. But I get the sense that everyone will be sort of broadly satisfied with, you know, with where they are. You know, Worcester, without grinding out that draw at Somerset, would probably look slightly drift at the moment because they'd have taken 4 bowling points essentially and lost 2 games without the 8 points of the draw. So, and also to George's point earlier about the draw points, I think actually if it was still at 5 points, we'd have more result pitches, we'd have more shootouts, and I think also we've not had the bad weather, but teams feel a bit hard done by when a game when there are 1.5 days of cricket in 4 days, and they end up taking 5 points away from it, whereas which almost feels like a defeat when you've not done very much wrong. So
there are other ways of.
There are, and I said to you yesterday, without expanding at all on the point, that I think the bonus point structure could be more creative. I still think it was a poor decision to remove to push up the first batting bonus point. I think 250 is a lot of runs on some pitches, particularly in Division 2. Also not particularly in Division 2, particularly in Division 2 this season. Normally Division 2 is the division of the draw, but for, we've seen Kent to second with 2 wins, and they've not got a batting point yet, and that is partly because they've probably not batted that well, but also partly because they've played on pitches that they beat Northampton 2.5 days, and they beat Middlesex in a game where the scores went up as the game wore on. So I think often 200, 240 could be match winning on the first day if you get put in, particularly if you get put in. I think if you get put into bat on a green seamer, get 240, it almost feels wrong that that leaves you without a batting point, when actually that could be a pretty decent effort all told.
They want to encourage good pitches, don't they? And I think the Division 1 pitches are probably better than Division 2.
They do, but the trouble with that is that only one team is playing at home, and you shouldn't be penalised as a away team if you rock up at someone else's place. They put you on a shootout pitch, you lose the toss, get put into bat, get rolled for 235, which might be match winning, but yeah, it's still not deemed to be the minimum for a bonus point, when the reality is it probably needs more nuance than that. Can
we talk about Dominic Sibley?
Yes.
Two centuries.
What does he need to do?
Well, can I just say one thing? I thought his innings on day one, that was Surrey obviously have picked up 2 draws. I think they probably started last season like that, didn't they? Because it was a Kookaburra rounds. Were the first 2 games Kookaburra rounds? I don't think Surrey won either of those games. I thought Dom Sibley's innings on day one, possibly, I think Hampshire probably win that game if Dominic Sibley doesn't score a century. I think Hampshire gave up too many runs in the first session. That was a good toss to win. Pitch got a lot flatter towards the back end of day 2. But that innings from Sibley, I thought was terrific. And he's never going to play for England, is he, George?
Well, why
Or
not?
Harmon, or Nick?
I
No,
don't
no.
know.
Let me finish. What under the current setup, but setups change.
I don't know.
And
I don't know. I really liked Dob Sibley, and actually the one thing I would say about that game is that huge result for Hampshire, because Hampshire always lose at the Oval.
yeah, they do.
And they always lose at the Oval in April, and they always get absolutely battered there. So
Yeah.
I think I worked out yesterday the last time they didn't lose at the Oval, Surrey's overseas player was Tillicratney Dilshan.
Yeah.
So that's 2014. The last time they won at the
Wow.
Oval, Dimitri Mascarenas was their captain, and Sher Bakdar was playing for Surrey. So massive. I was really impressed by Hampshire actually, because they, this is the kind of sort of forced regeneration, isn't it? Without the guarantees of Vince and Abbas, and 30 for 3 overnight, chasing 360. Kind of felt like we were going to be leaving that ground at 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, two tail enders though. Two tail enders.
But what I would say is for them to get through that day without getting to Ben Brown or Liam Dawson, who are the next two, I suppose, and these sort of experienced heads after Vince. Granted, Nick Gubbins isn't a kid anymore, but Gubbins played really well for his 100. But actually, Fletcher Middleton, Tom Press, Toby Albert, who are three of those guys that they've invested a lot of time in.
Tom Press. I think
they're 22, 23, 24. Prest is great. Prest has been like a Vince prototype for a while, and that's not to put that pressure on him, but he's suddenly got that opportunity and also that responsibility because they don't have Vince. Vince got 100 2 days ago or 3 days ago in the PSL, which must have been quite jarring for Hampshire when they were being rolled for 200 in the first innings. But they ended up 70 odd runs away from winning that game, 5 down. I never thought they were going to win it.
No. Do you think that they could have pushed a little bit more?
No, they could have pushed, but I just think coming away from the Oval, 300 for 5. I mean,
you're going to
be in for draw.
If Surrey aren't going to win this season, and they may not. I don't know. I just kind of felt that with Essex.
It's tricky.
Teams being happy with a draw against Surrey. I don't think Essex and Hampshire are two of the biggest rivals to win the championship. Being happy with a draw against Surrey,
I think being happy with a draw at a ground where you always get battered to the point where Surrey, I think I'm right in saying this, deliberately play this fixture on the same deck every year.
Same pitch, yeah.
Because Hampshire have said themselves openly that they are mentally scarred. Eddie Birrell said it last year. It's a mental thing for them rocking up at the Oval. They get done the same way every year to the point that Surrey literally prepare the same deck, the same surface. I think they had 9 of the same 11 from last year. For Hampshire to come away with that with a draw, without Vince, without Abbas, having been rolled for 200 on the first innings, 30 for 3 with 7 wickets in hand on going to the fourth day.
I get that. They were well behind the game and they did really well.
I think you take it.
They did really well. But, Warwickshire were well behind the game and they came back to win. I don't know. I just thought with the batting to come, it's not like they were top 5.
Well, to be fair,
they had so much batting to come. I just thought.
Well, Prest was 30 or 40. They weren't blocking it. I think actually what happened is that they kind of crept towards. I only realised how close they were to winning, to be honest, when they went off a bad light and realised it was only 70 odd left. But I don't know if there was ever the time really, given that they were, you lose 2 quick ones trying to attack it, and suddenly you probably do lose that game. So.
I don't know if you do. You lose 1 wicket in the morning session. You don't lose a wicket in the afternoon session. You're 3 or 4 down, but 2 of them are night hawks. I don't know. I think it's there. It's there to try, but in the end, bad light came in, and they wouldn't have had enough time to do it. I tell you what, can I just list that before? I want to have a quick chat about. Did we even talk about Sibley? Do you think he's going to play again?
Sorry.
Well, he definitely.
Let's talk about Sibley.
He's not playing under McCullum.
No, I can't see him ever playing under McCullum. But McCullum, anyway, go on, you talk.
He is a very different player to the one who was dropped.
He is.
He had become a pastiche of himself, and I think being dropped by England was a bit of a relief. He was battling again, and now his technique is more conventional. He's still a wee bit open. He still does things his own way, but he consistently scores runs, and he has continued to develop his game. Agreed. He is a better player. He has more shots.
He does. He's opened up the offside more.
That stat about carrying his bat. He's carried his bat. Is it no one apart from Jeff Boycott has carried his bat in the championship as often since the end of the Second World War? Jesus Christmas, that's a stat.
That is a stat.
That is a stat. He very consistently scores runs, and he has won Test matches for England. I think he had a very good test. Was it in Cape Town?
It was. He
And a
should have
very
been
good
player of the
one
match.
at
Yeah.
Emirates Old
He wasn't
Trafford.
for Stokes'
as well, I think.
heroics.
Yeah.
Well, he actually combined very well with Stokes.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that Stokes is hugely respectful of his abilities.
Yeah.
And maybe
agreed.
McCullum just needs to be a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more flexible. There are different ways of doing things. And ultimately, the currency is runs. So I'll ask each of you, who would score more runs for England in Tests this summer, him or Zach Crawley? What do you think? Give me an honest answer.
I think you're answering your own question because of the way you asked the question.
Well, hey, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
You're
right.
well, you know.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
I know I would rather bowl that.
Interesting.
I know I would rather bowl that, and that would be Zach. And I'm a fast bowler, and he's supposed to be the ball. And I love Zach. I think he's a great kid, and he's a talented player. But
I'm surprised by your answer, by the way.
I thought you
would
were
rather bowl at Sibley.
I saw that. Yeah, I agree. I thought Harmy was about to say I'd rather
No,
bowl at Sibley.
but the thing is for me is Zach gives you chances because of the way he plays.
Yeah.
Sibley gets in. If Sibley gets past 40 balls, finds out where his off stump is. Yes, he's not gonna score. He's not gonna blast you away. But I tell you what, England have got 5 or 6 players who can blast you away. And if you've got somebody that doesn't get out, I keep getting thrown at me, and I'm not going to say it's that because I have a go at like England having positions of the open positions of 2 and 3, whether Crawley and it's Pope, you talk about, they say this is the best opening partnership England have had for a long time. It's like, yeah, but Sir Alistair Cook went through 14 partners in the length of time he's here. We've not been blessed in Strauss and Cook. So if that's your argument, then it's a little bit flawed. I think once Sibley gets in and gets going, he's very, very difficult to bowl to because in the modern way, if you hang around with somebody like a Brook or a Root or Stokes is in and you're 60, 70, 80, all of a sudden that's an extra 40 or 50 runs on that first innings total. That's winning the game. I'm not the thing with Zach.
And he puts overs into bowlers as well.
Totally, George.
Absolutely. And I fancy my chances against Zach because yes, he might be wanting to play a shot and he might hit me on the top of the bounce, but I've got about 5 or 6 fielders in the game when Zach Crawley's batting. When Dom Sibley's batting, the mode of dismissal is probably the LBW or getting them squared up. Your catches in the game is probably keeper, first slip, possibly second slip. Now, he doesn't play out and get sort of caught mid-wicket. He doesn't get caught at extra cover. It gets caught there. All of a sudden, when Zach bats, fine legs in the game. Third man's in the game. I mean, third slips in the game off the face. I mean, bowling him through the gate. All these dismissals are in the game. So as a bowler, I know who I'd rather bat at. He might score quickly against me, but that's the fun of the contest, and I'd love that contest.
I think.
Can I say one thing on just one thing on Sibley as well? That it's obviously been 2 games. He's got 280 odd runs this season already. I think the interesting thing this season more broadly than Sibley is if someone does put together when we get to the end of May and everyone's played 7 games each. If we do have somebody who scored 1,000 runs, and we do have, this is such an interesting year, isn't it? Because it's so much for the future of the England Test team depends on how they go home against India and how they go away in Australia. If someone has a summer where they peel off 1,400 runs, whether it's Dom Sibley or Daniel Bell-Drummond or Ben McKinney or whoever it might be, puts you in a really interesting position next year if, let's say, England were to go to Australia and get battered, because we know what happens then. We know regimes change. We know that things start again. And actually, Dom Sibley is
back to basics, won't it?
But Dom Sibley is also much younger than people maybe think. He's
29,
he's not 30. Yeah.
And when you say it's 2 games, it just he has a consistent record of scoring.
Oh no, absolutely. But we're talking about him now because he's got 200 in a game. I think but I think it's a really interesting. I think Sibley almost like as a wider sort of like symbol representative of a lot of the circuit is really interesting this year. And I've said it a few times this and written about it a couple of times already this season that there's sort of a longer play for a lot of players this year, I think, which is if you can get yourself into if you have a really good year and you're not in this England's thoughts, this England will be defined by what happens this winter, because rightly or wrongly, that is how English cricket works. So you can do so much for your medium, long-term credentials by having a bloody good year this time round, because actually, you've only got to look at the way that England women are set up at the moment and what's about to happen in the next few weeks. if you get battered in Australia at the start of next season, what generally happens is that everyone gets thrown back into county cricket and we go, right, free for all, new coach, new director of cricket, new way of thinking. How are we going to do this? Who starts really well? Who went well last year? And it doesn't become a county select 11, and the majority of the team remains the same. But if you're one of those guys who's been battering the door down, suddenly spots do open up.
Just on this generally, just on batting generally, Len Hutton was asked years and years ago whether Tom Graveney reminded him of Wally Hammond. Okay, and he thought for a minute and he replied, Wally was hungry, as in that was the difference. Dom Sibley's hungry as hell for runs, and that's a really good quality for a batter.
Yeah.
And I know that these old-fashioned qualities seem to have gone out of the game just a little bit right now. They're certainly out of fashion. But Test cricket will always be as much about discipline and defiance as it will about flair and skill.
But George, I think the first thing
a lot of what Don Sibley is about what he doesn't do as a batter, and he doesn't do things really well. So I think it would be a shame if England was so one-dimensional they couldn't appreciate that there are different ways of doing things. It's the same as bowling dry. There are times to do it. There are times to bat dry too. But it would be, he's not one-dimensional. He's a better player than he was. He's gotten actually back to how he was 5 years ago, I think. And yeah, I definitely would like to think that he is one they could keep an eye on. And I really like McKinney, actually, as it happens. But McKinney is a bit like Crawley. He seems to love pace. He seems to love the ball coming on, and I worry about him a little bit against the moving ball.
We can continue this chat after the break. You're listening to Following On County Cricketer. You're listening to Following On County Cricketer. Let's continue the conversation. Harmy, you're about to jump in.
No, it was just a quick point. If I ever make a quick point, what you said before, George, about it's 2 games. It's 2 games for Ben McKinney. It's not 2 games for Dom Sibley. Dom Sibley's been doing this for a while now. It's 2 games for possibly 2 games for Banton as well, because of where he's been in his career in a red ball in the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But I think to finish the point on Sibley, I mean, he's been quite consistent for me in the last however many months and however many years that he's been putting scores on the board, but unfortunately it's not in the fashionable way that England want it. And unfortunately, over the course of these 10 test matches against top quality bowlers, the 1, 2 and 3, I think, is what's going to define English cricket when in this regime. Because if 1, 2 and 3 start very well against India and Australia, England will have a great chance of winning both series. If Joe Root's walking out and Harry Brooks walking out at 20 for 2, 20 for 3, England got no chance.
Do you think there's any reason to be concerned if you're a Surrey fan? I'm not sure anyone really talks about Surrey that much on this show, but balance of the team.
No. Bowling worries me a little bit.
Say that again.
Bowling worries me a little bit.
Yeah. I'd say. Go on.
From a quick, the spin bowler is obviously that's not there. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's that there, and they've got Clark's hit the deck bowler. Worrell's unbelievably skillful. Emar's coming to the end of his career, but if these wickets are going to be good and these wickets are going to be flat, I just wonder who is the one that's going to blow a team away when there's nothing. When it's difficult. And the cricket that's been played, Fisher's the same. He comes into. We spoke last year, didn't we, all about the likes of Lancashire struggles, given all the bowlers very, very similar from a pace point of view. Teams that struggled last year to survive in the championship. And I don't think Surrey are going to get relegated for any stretch. I still think they're going to have a great chance of winning it. But their balance of the attack, there's a lot of similar type bowlers in there. And maybe it's that tearaway fast bowler they haven't got, and possibly that spinner.
Do they miss Verdi?
No, I don't think they miss Verdi.
Go on, that's a bit sweeping. It was at least a discussion point, not a yes or no. But go on.
Well, Verdi hasn't been picked up by another county, has he?
They're getting back then.
He's hardly bowled. No,
well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? But he was in the side when they won the championship, and I can't help noticing that Dan Lawrence is bowling a lot of overs.
Yeah. A little bit like Archie Vaughan at Somerset.
I've got a feeling that Cam Steele would be playing now because that batting order is a little bit a little bit ridiculous. You've got Jordan Clark coming in at 8, I think. Ryan Patel at 7. I think Cam Steele, if he was fit, he's playing. I think Will Jacks isn't in the IPL, he's playing. But yeah, I've
Dan Lawrence bowled a lot of overs. It's not like Dan Lawrence was remember when he arrived last year, he said that one of his reasons for coming was that he wanted to develop himself into a proper spin bowling option, not just a part timer. And I think Lawrence.
I think Dan Lawrence needs to score some runs.
Well, Cam Steele's become this sort of April expert, hasn't he? He took 20 wickets last year. The year before, he got 100 at the start of the season against Lancashire. I think Fish has been really good for them. Just skills, and does bring something different. And they've got Nathan Smith arriving in a couple of weeks as well. To replace Kim Roach. I wouldn't worry if I was Surrey. They played on what both teams described as one of the flattest wickets they'd ever seen away at Essex.
Yeah.
And they played on a wicket that was pretty good against Hampshire. And to be fair, a game that they I thought it was a really good game, actually. Like a bit of pace in it. Sonny Baker showed with that 5 at the tail. But Surrey's, it's been a weird way of winning for title for 3 years, isn't it? Not having a specialist gun spinner. I think it would be hard to say that anyone should have gone out and got themselves an overseas spinner for April, because 9 Aprils out of 10, you'd be looking at it going, why have you done that? It's 3 degrees. So I would be slightly surprised they didn't get one later on the season, because if we are going to have a dry summer, which, who knows, might not be, but then they've lost. It's not just Verdi and Moriarty went away to Yorkshire. So they have, those spin resources they had in reserve have sort of shrunk a bit. Whether they need those with the right surfaces and the seamers they've got, I suppose we'll find out in the next few weeks. But I wouldn't be worried if I were them. Let's say they're a couple of points off top.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned either. And they've also come up against their 2 biggest rivals for the championship and haven't lost. And they've lost 2 tosses, which I'd say I'm not sure anyone's winning that batting second at Chelmsford, or the whatever it's called these days.
They got Sussex next though. That's a good game.
Yeah, I think. Well, have a look at these fixtures, by the way. For the next round, some good ones. Sussex on the up at Hove against Surrey. Durham, Yorkshire, the 2 promoted. Yorkshire came up, of course, and Durham with 2 defeats. Essex, Worcestershire, okay. Hampshire, Somerset. That's a game and a half. I'd say that's the game of the week, isn't it? And
Baker derby.
Oh yeah, and Warwickshire, Nottinghamshire as well. That's going to be interesting. Do we have to talk about the Trent Bridge game? You were there, George.
A bit relevant. A couple of things that stuck out. I mean, Haynes' first century for Nottinghamshire. He's a good player. Nice to see him develop. Not very many years ago, I remember Ian Bell was the batting coach with the under-19s, and he said he was the one to watch from that group, and that group included Banton and Lammonby. And so, he should go on to better things. I thought Porter and Cook looked weary. I mean, they're obviously quality bowlers. It's a quality attack. But they've bowled a lot of overs in the first 2 weeks. And I know people might say, well, they've only just started. But someone like Cook is at a really interesting stage of his career. I don't know whether he's going to get picked for England, but Lord Almighty, he's made a really good impression and made a compelling case for selection. And it would be awful if he injured himself now or in any way sort of jaded himself right on the brink of it. And they did look a bit jaded, but they were very flat wickets. And it was a good, hard-fought game. It just petered out. So the last few hours were horrendous, but that can happen.
It can indeed.
I'm a fan of Cook, and I thought 2 weeks ago when we started this show for the first time in the summer, I was like, he might have a chance of getting in the England squad for the first time, a realistic chance. Just think Sonny Baker might have just took his place.
I'd be amazed if Cook doesn't play this summer. Amazed.
Yeah, I just wonder if Sonny Baker's just took his place in the squad for the first up. I know we've only two rounds in.
I think,
but I like that lad, and I think that lad's got quality. I think he's got quality. I think he might. If you look at the England bowlers that potentially could get picked, I think there was one spot, and I think Cook was in the driving seat off the back of the winter, because I think the England lines liked him. I think they like Baker more now.
Well, I don't know, because I think Josh Tongue might be ahead of both of them, but I don't know.
There are
several good options.
Cook and Baker are probably at the 2 extreme ends of England's spectrum as well, aren't they? You've got the ultra skillful, slightly slower in inverted commas Cook, and you've got Baker, who who I really, really like as both a character and a bowler. He's just obsessed with running up and bowling fast. And um, they're going to, they're going to need both those qualities if they want to win in Australia, if they want to beat India. And but I'd be amazed if Cook doesn't play this summer.
Quick word
I
on
think he's worn them
Yorkshire.
down.
Quick word on Yorkshire. They rattled off a big win. Was that a record-breaking win, did you say, George?
Yeah.
504 runs.
In run terms, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Don Bess, 100 in second innings as well. They've got, I mean, they're going to win some games, right? Although, did I hear that Joe Root and Harry Brook are only going to play one county championship game?
Well, a minimum of one. They're going to play that game against Warwickshire at the start of May. And actually, that's a game worth watching because I think Warwickshire are going to hoping to have Wokes, and the two overseas, Latham and Webster, and somebody else as well. Hannon Dolby as well back. So it should be a good game, that one. Yeah, really high quality game. Yeah, maybe as few as one. And then they'll play the test against Zimbabwe, which they're looking at using as a bit of a warm-up to India. So unfortunate, but they're really busy, and I think people should understand that.
Yeah, Don Best was on our show yesterday, and he was, to be fair, he was brilliant.
He's
talked
a
about
great character.
Bairstow as a captain. Talked about Bairstow as captain. Talked about
Did he talk about that dismissal?
No, he didn't. He didn't say anything about the dismissal. He did say that when he was asked to do with night watchman, the wicket had been taken, and he did not have any shoes on, any pads on, or anything as he was running down the stairs, putting everything on, and he was worried that he was going to get timed out. So I think now, knowing Dom as I do, the character of theories that he has, it wouldn't surprise me the next time he goes out to bat, on the way down the stairs, he's putting everything on because obviously he got his first class 100. So, but he talked about, Milan effect with Bairstow and with Live also having some very, very good young players as well in there. And Yorkshire, like I said last week, Yorkshire will lose games where you think, how on earth have they lost games? But also they'll win games because of, I think, the balance of the group that they've got. So, and exciting times that they're going to have 10 days where the young lads can pick the brains of Harry Brook and Joe Root as well.
Yeah, they've got Ben Sears coming in as well very shortly. So there'll be competition there. We haven't spoken about Division 2. Let's do that. After the break, you are listening to Following On County Cricketer. You're listening to Following On County Cricketer. Myself, Jon Norman, George Dobell, Nick Friend from thecricketer.com and Steve Harmison. Division 2 then. What a win for Kent. And they did it with ease as well. Zach Crawley dropped on naught, got Kent off to a flying start alongside Ben Compton, who hit a century. Bill Drummond was dismissed first ball, but shrugged it off. And comfortable win for Kent. The Adam Hollyoake effect is certainly bearing fruit, although they're not top of the table, weirdly, after 2 wins. Who wants to start with that? Who wants to pick the bones out of that? And Middlesex as well. They look like they're in a good position, but in the end, it was a really comfortable win for Kent. Yeah,
it was. You probably wouldn't have seen it coming, I suppose, after the first day and a half of that game, chasing 320 odd 2 down, either team. But Kent have just obviously Kent were Div 1 for 5-6 years until this season. They had a horrific year last year, but I think the Hollyoake effect in inverted commas has definitely had some kind of. I think it's freshened things up. He's an external voice in a club that, if you think about what they had previously, in a very well established sort of trio of Matt Walker, Paul Downton, Simon Cook, who was the bowling coach, and then became director of cricket. Like it was, a lot was very similar. And they went down, had an absolute shocker last year, and actually they've gone and got someone in who I think has just sort of reinvigorated a lot of people. And they've had their annual misfortune with their overseas players. First Wes Agar changing his plans. He's going to come at the end of May now, and then Keith Dudgeon, who came in, I think on Joe Root and Zach Crawley's recommendation from what he said to me last week, took his 7 run debut, and he feels like Kent can't have nice things kind of thing. Like he blew his knee out a couple of days later, and he's gone home. So, but no, for them to come through that, win the game, win as they did, for Crawley to get runs in the second innings, particularly after being, as you said earlier, being dropped on naught for what would have been a pair at third slip, that becomes a very different run chase. But I mean, that's a nice top four in Division 2. Crawley, Compton, Belldrummond, Mieye. Yeah, has a bit of everything. And yeah, and look, Middlesex, I still think Middlesex will go up as one of the two, if not win the title. I think they've got a really good side for Division 2 and a really good spinner, and yeah, pretty decent top six. But and I reckon if they played that game 10 more times, they'd probably win, defending 320, probably 7 of those. But yeah, I mean, Oscar Ress, a colleague of George and I, was there, and rather than myself this week, but that just looked like a pretty decent game of cricket. And yeah, but a massive start for Kent. Because if they'd started without 2 wins, or had started with a couple of defeats, given the year they had last year, bring in Hollyoake, who's not actually done any head coaching in the last 20 years. Like, yeah, I think that could have gone south quite quickly, but it seems to have had the opposite effect.
Dudgeon's a big blow, though. Dudgeon is a big blow.
Huge blow. But they're so used to it by now.
Yeah, but it's how you react,
struggling as well. They've got a few bowlers struggling.
Yeah,
I don't think their depth of bowlers is that good. So they're going to have to be careful of making sure they're keeping their key bowlers on the park.
And the overseas market is so difficult. I mean, there are overseas players being signed who we just barely know anything about.
They're the best example of this, Ken. I mean, if you think of the names they've signed over the last couple of years, in Dudgeon, Kashif Ali, the Pakistan team who they got now as well, Charlie Stobo last year, Bayes Swanepoel, Hakeem Jordan. They are, and Simon Cook, to his credit, has been very open on what an absolute minefield this is, and he's been in the job for a year and a half, and he probably feels like he's been doing it for about 10 years. It's he said to me, he speaks to agents most days about overseas players, and how they've got to the point now where they don't even tell their players when one's done until someone is on the verge of flying over, because why would you? The number of times that you think you've got someone, last year, the start of Paul Downton's last year, which I think was 2023, I think they went through something like having 6 players agreed, Australian seamers, before someone actually arrived. And that was Wes Agar, who then became he's been back 2 or 3 times. But this year, South Australia did really well, so his workload increased across both formats. So he's not coming until the end of May, when he was meant to be here for these 7 games. If you remember last year, Xavier Bartlett, the Australia team, was meant to be here. Cricket Australia then signed him up and said, no, you're not going over there to play Championship cricket. It's an absolute minefield, a complete minefield. They've almost done well to get. They might look at the end of the season and go, do you know what? Dudgeon was great because he won us a game.
Yeah, that is true. It's just again, as we're saying with those clubs that are at the bottom, early days, 2 games, long way to go. But it's a terrific start. You're right. Hollyoake's reinvigorated them, but I do worry about losing such an influential player this early. That's all.
Yeah.
These fast bowlers are so important. And just do you mind if I move on to Leicestershire, Normo?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, they're top of the table. I mean, this is and it's really good, because the reason it's relevant is that Leicestershire do actually produce young players. Now, they don't always stay there, but for years they've produced young players, and they're still doing it. I think we mentioned, obviously there's Josh Hull, but there's this guy, is it Alex Green? Talking about, who's bigger than Hull, and he's a proper unit. And of course there's Rahan, who opened the batting with some effect this week. They might not stay there at the end of the season, but what they're doing is they're proving that they're relevant. They're improving. It's really, really good for English cricket that they're doing that. And they did it, by the way, this week without Chris Wright.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. But George, did it as a team effort. I mean, I'm looking at the score, first inning score, 484, no hundreds. Number 11 gets 40, and I mean, everybody chipped in. So, fair play to him. I like Ryan opening the batting. I like that. Just something different. If he's not going to bowl, you know what he's like. We've all seen him on the side of the field, before games and test matches. He loves the game of cricket, and he needs to be in the game. So if he's not going to bowl, because obviously he can't feel his fingers, then opening the batting is another tick in the box of his development going forward. Because I love that kid. I think he's got a bright future in the game when he gets a good run in the side.
Well, he made it work, didn't he? He made it work for him.
What about Lancashire then, guys, as we move towards the back end of the show.
Tough to win games. Tough to win games. I mean, they've got a really, really flat wicket. And flat wickets are fair enough, and that's how Test cricket's played and stuff. But geez, theirs is flat.
And
it's going to be really, really tough to win games.
Harmy, I mean, we spoke about their bowling attack when they're in Div 1.
Yeah.
I think Mike Afton wrote a piece recently about their bowling attack, actually.
They worry me a little bit. Yeah, they worry me a little bit that they're not going to be able to win games at home, and that's how you win championships. That's how you get into the first division. Lancashire shouldn't be in the second division of the championship, but they are. And I think they are where they are because of the surface that they play on. I spoke to Benke early part of last season, and he was frustrated, I think, with these grounds when they're wanting to leave a bit of grass on wanting to leave them a bit damp. So they started damper grass on so the ball carried through, and then got flatter as they went on so they can have a game plan. But when your wicket's just flat, and you have only got 80-mile-an-hour bowlers, your game plan's out of the way. You've got no game plan, really, unless you've got gun spinners. Hartley got 3-4. It was nice to see John Turner have a game. How many games he plays, that will be interesting. I suspect he'll probably play all the games at Lancashire if he's only allowed to play 4 games. At Old Trafford, sorry. But it concerned me a little bit, my old mate, Benke. It concerns me that they're not going to win enough games or be able to win enough games to get themselves in a position to challenge at the top end and get promoted back to where that ground deserves to be.
They'll score a lot of runs. They've got a lot of hundreds in that top 6. But as Harmy says, they
don't score them quickly though, Nick. They don't score them that quickly.
No, they don't. They're
not. I mean, they've got 350. They've got about 350. They've got 220 in the first innings off 82 overs. 350 of 149. Yes, fair enough. Northampton had the game set up in the work.
No, you're right. I think they I was at Lord's for the last day of the first round when they didn't have John Turner yet and Anderson Phillip hadn't arrived yet, and they were a very, as you say, one-dimensional, samey attack, and Tom Hartley wasn't fit yet either. So, in the league of in Division 2, which is the league of the draw, you need the teams that go up. We saw it last year with Sussex and having Jaden Seals early season, and the way they go with 2 spinners and all that kind of stuff, and Durham the year before. You only get out of Division 2 if you take 20 wickets, because not many teams do. And it's why I'd continue to tip Middlesex, because the spinner changes the game there. But yeah, everyone's going to score a lot of runs because there are a lot of flat decks in Division 2.
I think they're quite a good attack. They're
a very good attack, but
not covered.
Yeah, it's the first thing I said, isn't it? I think that pitch is, you can have pitches which are too flat. And just on John Turner, I think that will be the first time quite a lot of people saw him. And he didn't have a good game. There's no way around it. You're picking him on potential. He's got a very, very high ceiling, so don't judge him too soon. He is a kid. I know he's not that young, but I think he's 24, isn't he? But he needs to play, and if he does play, I think he could go a very long way in the game, and he will offer something a bit different to that attack. So don't judge him too soon. He just needs to play, and I still think there's a lot there to like. I accept he didn't 100%. Have a good game.
Let's wrap things up then, guys. We should make mention of some real sad news that came out of Surrey this week, or yesterday actually. Alex Stewart, wife Lynn, she passed away after a long battle with cancer. 12 years, I think she's been suffering. So obviously our thoughts go to Alec and the family. You played with Alec, didn't you, Harmy? It's cricket is a family affair. These counties, we talk about cricket being the second most watched sport in the world, but all these counties are so indelibly linked to the communities. They're family affairs, certainly with Surrey. I mean, it's a club that has been blessed with family members, and I just hope and you expect that the county will rally around Alec and provide him the shoulder and the comfort just to get through this moment of grief.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I found out when we were doing the following on yesterday in the middle of the show, and it hit me hard. And I mean, we've known Lynn was poorly for a while. I seen her last year at the Newcastle-Chelsea game when Alec was up, and the family, because Lynn's from Durham, from Lancaster and Durham. Whenever Newcastle play Chelsea, Stewie comes up, brother-in-law comes out, comes down to the press box. We have nice cup of tea and a chat and gets a picture taken on the side of the field, and it's a big family affair when the Stewart family come back up to the northeast. And you mentioned about the family and the club. Surrey County Cricket Club is the Stewart family, and I've got no doubt they'll make sure that Alex Stewart gets every support he can. And we've known, because of he's been tapering away his role at the club. And I mean, a wonderful woman, wonderful family. And like, the old saying, the strong woman behind the strong man. I mean, Lynn was Stewie's rock. So, he has given everything in his, I think, adult life to cricket as Alex Stewart. And it's now time that the cricket family put their arm around him and look after him for what's going to go forward. So, devastated to hear the news.
Yeah, well said, Harmy. Okay, guys, where are we going to be this week? George, what are your movements?
I'm hoping, because I know my family are in Birmingham this weekend, that I hope I'm going to be able to do Warwickshire v Nottinghamshire.
I love the fact that you find out on the show, because Nick will then go on to the schedule and tell you where you're going to be.
To be fair, they do pretty much let me do what I want, but I've been choosing last so that other people could. I get to go lots of lovely places, don't I? So I've been choosing last, and it's just
George, you are going to Warwickshire v Nottinghamshire.
There we are.
Congratulations.
That's the joy. That's great. What a lovely place.
What about you, Nick?
I'm actually going to rural Morocco tomorrow.
Okay, didn't realise they play cricket out there.
Now I'm going on a. I can't say too much, because I don't know if my parents listen to this, but they don't know. It's very possible I've already said too much there, but no, we're going on. Me and my brother.
Grounded.
No, me and my brothers have booked a little holiday for the five of us, and they don't know where we're going unless they are listening. But they've done well to get an hour into this, so
I'm quite confident.
Can we clip this bit?
Yes.
I arrive home at midnight on Monday morning, so I'm going to Middlesex Glamorgan 10 hours later.
Of course you are.
For day 4, because as you said,
because you love it.
Did you get back through customs?
There's no Div 2 by I can't remember the name of the lake where I'm going.
Right, Rotor Watch has never ever been as riveting as this. What about you, Harmy?
I'm going to Durham. I'm going to Durham. Charlie's training on Friday. He's training Thursday afternoon, so I'll probably go and see the Yorkshire lads on Thursday afternoon, because they'll be training at Durham, and then he's training Friday morning at Durham. So I'll probably watch the first session or two of Durham, Yorkshire. I think I'm in Richmond as well. I think he's got a 2-day game against Yorkshire's Academy as well. So I'm going to be sitting on the side of a cold field like I was at Middlesbrough. I don't know if, George, you ever been to Middlesbrough Cricket Club back in the day?
I don't think so, actually, no.
I was there on Saturday, and it was glorious for about 2 hours. And then I went from shorts and T-shirts to trying to find... Have you seen the Ryanair ad where the guy puts all his clothes on so he doesn't have to put it in a bag? About 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, me and my wife were dressed like that gentleman because it was freezing cold. So I've got that for another 4 days this week.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be thinking of you as I take the kids to Epping Forest on Friday, take the kids to Crystal Palace Sports Centre for football training on Saturday, kick the TV when Fulham lose to Chelsea on Sunday, and then Easter egg hunt in Streatham on Monday. So, yeah, that's my Rotor Watch.
You're not going to be watching any cricket?
I'll be listening to Churchy, I imagine, for 4 days.
That's nice. Hasn't that been one of the highlights of the season, hearing him back? By the way, he's so good. He is so good.
Honestly, I was at the Oval for the first session of play on Friday, and then I bumped into Churchy on the way out. And I mean, you cannot have a conversation with the bloke because you're constantly interrupted by people walking past and then coming up to speak to him. It's absolutely ridiculous. He is an institution. Yeah, so it's great to have him back. I mean, why he isn't doing more for that club is...
Well, I don't understand why he's not a big name, because he is brilliant at what he does. You go around the county circuit, you've got Jimmy Anderson in Manchester, and you've got, Dom Sibley. He is an absolute master of his art, and it's brilliant to hear him back.
And nobody looks more like
the Holy Trinity
from
Anderson,
Blackadder,
Sibley,
Blackadder 4.
That's right.
Than Mark Church. Yeah, so there we go. Hopefully Church is listening this far in. Guys, thank you. We'll be back next week. And thank you for watching or listening to Following On County Cricketer.